Hi, it's Allie and welcome to my channel. So for today's video, I have a book haul. 3 of these books I bought off of Amazon, but all of the other books that I have here today, I bought off of either discount sites or I found at a used bookstore. So I try to keep that in mind when I am getting books because I do buy books from Barnes & Nobles occasionally just for the environment of going to Barnes & Nobles. But I like to get the best deal that I can find on books since I do often get a lot of them because I have no self-control when it comes to books. But anyway, let's go ahead and get into it. So the first 3 books I have are a trilogy right now. I do believe that the 4th book is coming out in February, and I also think that there's going to be a 5th book, kind of. It might be a novella of some sort that's supposed to take place between the 1st and the 2nd books. The series is Crave by Tracy Wolff. Now, do I know a lot about this book? No, I do not. Do I know that it is like this decade's Twilight? Yes, I do. So of course I want to read this. I've heard it described as being like Twilight, but at a boarding school of some sort, I believe. The main character is a normal girl and she goes to this boarding school full of monsters and she feels like she doesn't fit in. So it's kind of like that, I'm weird, I'm not like the other girls here. So we'll see how it is. I just picked it up for the fact that I've heard so many good reviews about it and also because it's like Twilight. I mean, the covers even remind you of Twilight. Crave is the 1st book in the series. Crush is the 2nd book in the series. And the 3rd book in this Crave series is Covet. I don't remember what the 4th book is going to be called. I'll put it up here in the corner for you in case you're wondering. I'll also put up here the novella of whatever 5th book or whatever it's going to be. I'll put that up here too in case you're interested in it. I'm really excited to read this series. I've heard so many good things about it and the plot is very fast and smooth. The next book that I got at Half Price Books, and that is Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. And this is the 1st book in the Throne of Glass series. I do have the very last book, Kingdom of Ash, in this series because I got it for $2 at one of the discount online stores that I go to because I couldn't pass that up, $2 for a hardback book. Obviously, I have not read the series yet. I wanted to pick up the 1st book because I've heard so many good things about it. It's very popular right now. Though I did read the 1st page in this book and the names and places, I'm definitely gonna have to look in the back of the book to see what the pronunciations are for them because it's definitely a fantasy book. They're definitely spelled weird and funky. So I wanna make sure that I have them right in my mind because when I read a book and I can't understand or pronounce the word in the book, I just like skip over it. Like when I'm reading, like I can see the name and I recognize the name and I know what it's to, whether it's to a person or a place, but I don't, in my head, I read the words as I go, but I'll just skip over the word that I can't understand. So definitely gonna have to look up the pronunciations for these things. But it follows the main character here and her name is, I'm gonna get this wrong, Selena? I'm gonna say Selena Sardothian. Once again, I'm gonna have to look up pronunciation, but she is an assassin. And I was reading, and Sarah J. Maas got this idea because she used to listen to soundtracks to movies, and one day she was listening to the soundtrack for Cinderella, and she was listening to the song where Cinderella leaves the ball, and she was thinking, what if Cinderella was there to either steal something or to assassinate the prince? So she took that thought and she created this book. So I think that's such an interesting story to how the author came up with the idea for this book. Really excited to read this series. I'm really hoping that I love it. There are 8 books in the series total. Reading a series, this is the one for you. The next book I have was kindly sent to me by Simon & Schuster, and that is Heartbreak for Hire by Sonia Hartle. Our main character in the story works for a company that is hired by jilted lovers to get revenge on their past lovers, the ones that have wronged them. I think the concept from this book alone of having a company that gets revenge for jilted lovers, I think that's so interesting. But like I said before, not okay in real life, but it's still interesting to have that kind of concept, just the drama alone with that concept. I'm really excited to read this. I haven't been having much luck with adult romances lately, just not being very interested in the plot of the story, or the writing hasn't been the greatest. So I'm really hoping that I end up loving this book, and hopefully this will get me back in the mood for adult romances. The next book I have here, I'm really excited to read, and it is All the Stars and Teeth by Adeline Grace. And this is the first book in a duology, and all I know about this book is it has to do with pirates, and that's all I needed to know. I love books about pirates and mermaids and anything that takes place on the sea. It just seems so adventurous to me. And I feel like there's not a whole lot of books out there like that. Recently, I read Sea Witch, which is a retelling of The Sea Witch. So there were ships and mermaids, and it was about the ocean. And I've also read To Kill a Kingdom, which is about pirates and mermaids as well, which was a good, solid book. And I know there's a few other books out there that are about pirates as well that I really want to read. They are on my TBR. I just love reading stories that are out on the ocean. Just the descriptions and everything. I just think it's beautiful, the picture in my mind of it. So I'm really excited to read this. I've heard a lot of good things about it. And I know I say I'm excited to read a lot of these books, but I genuinely am excited to read them. I don't like to pick up books for the most part that I'm just kind of iffy about, or that I'm not sure about. I pick up books that genuinely sound very good to me. So I really am excited to read all these books. Now, do I have the time to read all these books? No, I wish I was one of those people that could read 30 books in a month. Like, that would be awesome. I could get through my physical TBR in no time, but I'm just not. I don't know if it's because I have kids and I have other responsibilities around here that I have to go do that. If I'm not a fast enough reader, I wish I could read 30 books in a month, but you know what? It's a good month if I've read 6 books. Like, if I read 6 books in a month, that's pretty good for me. Roughly my average every month is about 4 books usually. It also just depends. Is it a fast read, a slow read? Is the book a short book? Is it a long book? Is it over 500 pages? But anyway, I have gotten away from what this video is about. The next book I have here is Shielded by Kaylin Flanders. And this book sounds so good. So it's about a princess that wants to fight in the war for her kingdom, but because she's a girl and because she's the second born, her father has other ideas for her. He wants to send her to another kingdom to marry a prince. And along the way, they run into some trouble, and she needs to see if it's worth letting out a secret to help her kingdom, or if it's best to just keep it hidden. If I get in the story a warrior princess, I will absolutely love it. If you just look at the cover of this book, does she not just look like a warrior? I love the cover of this book. I believe the second book has come out, and I think it's called Untethered, maybe? But this book sounds so good. The arranged marriage trope and a warrior princess that needs to save the kingdom sounds so interesting to me. I think this is a self-published book though, but it is popular. Like, you'll see it on TikTok and everything, and I've heard so many good things about it. I could be wrong. It could be published by a big company, but I think it's self-published. I believe that this book is self-published. I'll read the little blurb on the back of this because I think it sounds very interesting. It says, "My world was tipping, my shattered life scattering like glass across ice. How was I to find my place in a new land when I couldn't find a place among my own people? How would I keep my secret hidden while under the scrutiny of an entire kingdom?" I will tell you guys, the main reason I picked up this book was because of the cover. I think the cover looks so cool, but the fact that there might be a warrior princess in the story is just an added bonus to it. This book I picked up is A Vow So Bold and Deadly by Bridget Kimmerer, and this is the third and final book in the Cursebreaker series. I do have the second book, which is A Heart So Fierce and Broken, because I got that one on sale as well. And this one says it's from Target, but I did not purchase this from Target. Still got it on sale. I think I paid $6 for this, so I thought that was a really good deal on a hardback book. But this series, there's 3 books in the series. The first book is A Curse So Dark and Lonely, and this is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. I feel like there are a lot of Beauty and the Beast retellings out there, I think there are quite a few books that are just about that story. I know for a fact that A Court of Thorns and Roses, as most of you probably know, is super popular right now, and it is a Beauty and the Beast retelling as well. I have not read that yet. It is on my physical TBR. I'm hoping to get to it by the end of this year, maybe. But I do have a lot of books on my fall TBR that I want to read first. I've heard a mixture of things about this series. I've heard that people really enjoy this series, but I've also heard that people really don't like it. I've also heard that people specifically don't like this last book in this series. With it being a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and that is my favorite Disney movie, and Bella's my favorite princess, as she is for most of us bookworms, I definitely want to read this series, so I'll just have to wait and see what my own opinion is on it. And once again, I got the second book in a series without having the first one, but I haven't heard anyone say that they don't like this series. But I got the second book for a steal. It was only $3 when typically I think it's $20, so I just had to pick it up, of course, because once again, I have no self-control when it comes to books. But this book is We Free the Stars, and I'm not even gonna attempt to pronounce this name. I'm sorry, I should have looked it up, but I'm just gonna butcher it if I try to pronounce it. But We Free the Stars is the second book in duology. The first book is We Hunt the Flame. But I've heard really good things about this. I just read Kingdom of the Wicked recently, and I've been struggling trying to find something that I want to read after that book because it was just so good. I've heard that this duology is a great place to start. So I just have to pick up the first book and hopefully it'll meet my expectations. The next book I have is also the second book in a series, but I do have the first one. And it is only a duology, so I picked this up to complete the series. And this is Everything That Burns by Guida Trellis. And this book is set during the French Revolution. So it is an historical fiction. And the first book in the series is Enchantée. But I believe that she changed the name. Like, this was supposed to be something different, but she changed the name before she published them. And the first book now in the US is called All That Glitters. So this is the first book, the original cover of it, and is Enchantée, but now it is All That Glitters, and then the second book is Everything That Burns. And this duology is set in the French Revolution, and the main character's name is Camille. I think that this historical fiction sounds so good. I don't think I've read anything that is set in the French Revolution, but I love that time in history, so I'm really excited to read this duology. I think that I'm really gonna love it. The next book I have is How the King of Elfham Learned to Hate Stories by Holly Black. And this is a book in addition to the Folk of the Air series by Holly Black, and that is The Cruel Prince, The Wicked King, and The Queen of Nothing. I have not read that series, but I've actually heard that this book is really good. I've heard rave reviews for this. I've heard that people have actually liked this book more than the original 3 books in the trilogy. I obviously want to read those books first before I come to this. This book follows the perspective of Prince Cardan and just little adventures that he has prior to the start of the trilogy, during, and even after the last book in this series. And I will say that this cover I think is beautiful as well. I love the artwork on it and the shiny gold, and the end papers in here are beautiful as well. So it's just a beautiful book altogether, and there's artwork in here, and like on the top of the pages they have the little vines. It's just a beautiful book in and of itself. If the contents of the book are as beautiful as the outside of it, I know that I'm gonna love this book. Ooh, the embossing on the hardcover of this book is beautiful too. I love the gold against the black. My husband asked me the other day, he goes, are you ever going to read all the books on your bookshelf? And you know what? Yes, I will at some point. I mean, someday I'll get to them. I really want to read all of them, otherwise I wouldn't have bought them. Like I said before, I wish I could read more books per month, but I can only read as fast as I can and with the time that I have. But yes, I love reading and I love reading books, but I also like collecting books, and I hope to someday have a library full of books. So for me, it's not just about reading the books. It's about actually having the book itself and just the artwork on all the covers and all of that. It's just so beautiful, and to me it's a collection And yes, I have read some, I haven't read some, and I'm going to read some. But they are my collection of books, and they're my own little library. The next book that I have is Ravage the Dark by Tara Sim, and this is the second book in the Scavenge the Stars duology. And this book, when I read the description of it, it kind of reminds me of Six of Crows a little bit, with just the merchants and all of the scheming that's going on. But it's Six of Crows with pirates. And like I said, I love stories with pirates. The descriptions that are in the books that have to go along with being at the ocean or being on ships. I love all of that in my books. So really excited to read these books. I don't believe there are going to be any more books in this series. I think that it is only going to be a duology. So I'm glad that I have these two, because I can tell you, after reading Kingdom of the Wicked, I really don't want to pick up any more new books until at least the next book's out, especially if the books leave you on cliffhangers. So now I can read them one after the other. The next book I have is The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern, and I've heard amazing things about this story. So in the story, we follow other stories. So the main character in this story is at his campus library, pulls out a book and is reading it. Sounds so interesting, turns the page, and then he reads a story that's about his own childhood. But how can that be when the book is older than he is? Can you imagine reading a book and all of a sudden you turn the page and it's about you, it's about your story? I would be so confused, but also intrigued. Like, what else is in this book? Is there more to my story? Is there something that hasn't happened to me yet that I'm going to read about? I just think it sounds so interesting, the concept of this book. I've heard so many good things about this book. I've also heard that it's kind of slow, but I think that goes along with the concept of the book. But really excited to read this book. I have never read a book that is about other stories, or a book that is about books. So I'm excited to read this. Like I said, I say that for every book, but I really mean it. I am excited to read this. I don't know when I'm gonna get to it, but I am excited to dive into this world. Okay, so the very last book I have is a little different than what I typically pick up. Now, I was just talking to my sister and I was telling her I do like these kinds of books. So this book is a thriller, and I do like thrillers. I just don't read them very often because I like a little tad bit of romance in my stories. And you know, in thrillers, if there is romance in it, you know, someone's gonna kill someone else or something's gonna happen. Like, it's not romance per se. But I do like thrillers. I like the fact that when you're reading a thriller, if it's a good thriller, you're guessing the whole time. You're trying to figure out what's going on. But a good thriller will keep you guessing and you won't be able to predict what happens. The book I have here is The Last Time I Lied by Riley Sager. And I've heard that this author writes really great thrillers. But this takes place at a camp, and there are a group of girls in this cabin, and one girl stays behind while the others go out and the others go missing. But then years later, the girl that was left behind comes back to the camp to really figure out what has happened. So this really reminds me of like the old slasher movies I watched. One movie I watched, what was it called? I think it was Jason. Or Friday the 13th. I think it was one of them. I haven't watched all of them, though I know my husband, he just bought all of them, so we're definitely gonna have to watch them this fall. But it just reminds me of that kind of environment of being at the camp and all these crazy things are going on and you don't know what's happening. And I am interested in this book. I am interested to see, will it keep me guessing? I'm interested to see if I'm actually still interested in reading thrillers. Those are all the books that I have for my book haul today. I had 14 books here, which is honestly pretty good for me. That it's been months since I've actually just bought a bunch of books at a time. So I'm pretty proud of myself for only having this small amount. And you know what? Other than my book boxes, of course I get those. But other than that, I'm gonna hold off on getting any more books because I really want to try to get through my fiscal TBR. And if I keep buying new books and adding more books to my physical TBR, then it's gonna seem like I'm never gonna get through it. I wanna feel that accomplishment of getting further along in my physical TBR. So we'll see how that goes. I love books. I love reading. I love stories. And when I'm reading a book, I feel like I'm actually in that world. I don't feel like I'm just reading letters on a page. I feel like I'm a part of whatever world that I'm reading about. So it's hard to say no to a book that you've heard about or that you've read about, that world sounds so interesting and so fun that you want to be a part of it. It's hard to say no to it. But that is my goal for the rest of the year, other than what I currently have coming or like my book boxes. So that's my goal for the rest of the year, to not add any more books, with some exceptions, to my physical TBR. But thank you guys so much for watching my video today. I will link all my social media accounts down below if you wanted to check those out. Make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon if you want to be notified when I post new content. Once again, thank you guys so much, and I'll see you next time. Bye.